Apollo 13, A Few Good Men, Footloose, JFK, Tremors,
Brilliant.
Sleepers, Mystic River, Wild Things. We could just go on for hours, really, listing Kevin Bacon films. The man is a legend. Fun fact, Kevin's movies have grossed more than £2 billion
It's only 20 quid a movie, though.
at the US box office alone. For nearly 40 years, he's been on our screen in movies. But latterly, he, like so many other big-name actors, has made the jump to TV. I've been talking to him about his latest project, a new series for Amazon. Its name is I Love Dick.
Well, you know, a lot of people are resistant to that, so I appreciate you diving right in.
The series is based on Chris Kouse's book. For those who haven't read it, what's it about, Kevin?
Well, the show is about a couple that comes to a small town in Texas where there's an arts institute, and she's a filmmaker, and he is an intellectual that's been studying the Holocaust, and he's coming to become a fellow at this institute, and both of them become obsessed with a guy named Dick, which I play, who is a artist and who runs the institute, and he's kind of a wannabe cowboy, and they've sort of lost some of the how do I put this? They've lost some of the energy in their marriage, but their mutual obsession for this outside person sort of reunites their romance.
He's quite a two-dimensional character in the book, isn't he? But they've really fleshed him out, excuse the terminology, for your role.
Yeah, I mean, in the book, you learn a lot about Chris and Soloway, who are the couple, but Dick kind of remains a little bit more of a mystery. In the show, he's mysterious in the first few episodes, but then you really get a chance to see that there's, kind of a man behind the Dick.
He's not entirely likeable, is he?
No, I mean, I think that. Well, look,
Is he complex?
He's complex, yeah. I mean, when you meet him, there's a first scene where they kind of go out to dinner. He is dismissive of her as an artist and as a filmmaker. He says some sort of disparaging things about women filmmakers, and he's kind of clearly sort of vain and opinionated. But for me, he's in sort of a protective kind of mode. He's a guy that's created a kingdom to which he can be a king. So he's like a kind of a big celebrity in this small pond that is this town. And I think he's put up a lot of barriers and a lot of walls to letting people in, and that's kind of what's going on in that first scene.
And he's certainly not used to being a muse, is he? It sort of flips the whole patriarchal thing on its head, because he is Catherine Hahn, who's playing Chris Kraus. He is her muse.
He is, and he's it's kind of looking a little bit at the idea of. Well, I mean, Jill Soloway, who created the show, considers it the female gaze, and the premise of that is that much art, including films and television, is made through the male gaze, and so the objectification of women, kind of happens again and again and again, or at least women are looked at through a very male kind of point of view. And in I Love Dick, the writers' room was 100% women. Except for one director, many of our directors were women, including a brilliant British filmmaker named Andrea Arnold. Mm-hmm. And I think he is an object. He's kind of she considers him sort of like a figure, like a Greek god kind of, and eventually though. What's cool about the show to me, and what attracted me to it, is that you start to see the man behind there, the vulnerabilities, the sensitivity, the flaws, that he has his own desires as well.
Jill Soloway must be an incredible person to work with. Obviously, created the groundbreaking series Transparent. What was it like working with her? And is it true that your wife and daughter said to you when you got this script, "You must do this, please"?
Yeah, they basically had me doing the show before I'd even read it, or they'd read it, or anybody read it. I hadn't even spoken to Jill. They were like, "It's Jill Soloway, it's Catherine Hahn, you're Dick, you're doing it." I loved working with her. She is a fantastic director, but she also has a really interesting kind of approach to the process, and part of that approach is that everybody around that's involved with the production. It needs to be open-hearted and present, and she always says, you're not going to screw up. No one's going to lose their job. We're all going to get this done, and we're going to get done together. And it's really a pleasure. It was a real pleasure to work with. I mean, it's a very unusual kind of vibe on the set.
Your candour about celebrity has been quite refreshing to me researching for this interview, because you've not made any bones about the fact that you got into this, in part at least, to become famous.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I did. I knew that I wanted to be some kind of a star. I mean, honestly, from the time I was a little boy, I can remember walking into a room, even before I knew what being an actor was or what being fame was. I can remember walking into a room and having this desire to want people to look at me and laugh at me and kind of react to me. That was just a really strong driving force in my life. I mean, I'm the youngest of six, so I guess maybe that's kind of you're out there when you're the youngest of six. You're trying to squeak the wheel as much as you can.
What about your dad and your mum? How did they influence your desire to do that, to become a star?
Well, my father was a city planner in Philadelphia, and he was a public figure in the city. He worked in city government. Sometimes controversial, sometimes admired, and by some people I think probably also despised. But he was very, very into his own press in a way. He really liked it when he was mentioned in either in a good way or in a bad way in the papers, and he would bring them home and he would talk about it. And from a pretty young age, I could see that sometimes people would say, "Hey Ed, hello Ed, what are you doing with that that neighborhood, Ed?" Or they'd say things to him. So I think that from him I sort of got that desire to be famous. And frankly, I mean, this is a bit of a Freudian cliche, but I wanted to beat him at the fame, really. You know what I mean? I think that boys, to a certain extent, are always kind of on the way to wanting to kick their father's ass in some way, and for me, it was a fame thing, whether I knew it or not. I mean, my mother, on the other hand, was a very, very artistic kind of person, and really, really loved the arts, and really encouraged, like, amongst all my brothers and sisters, music and art and dancing and creating and making things kind of with your hands out of nothing. And she's the one that, like, one of my few toys was a giant box that had a bunch of costumes in it. And again, even before I knew what an actor was, I would dress up and dig into this box and find different costumes so that I could become somebody else, whether it was, a cowboy or Robin Hood or a policeman or army, whatever that was,
Which is oddly reminiscent of one of your EE adverts where you play an astronaut and all those different characters. Did you have a favourite to dress up as when you were younger?
I guess, I was into those. I think I would probably say I had a pretty strong, kind of Robin Hood phase.
Yeah, good call. I love Robin Hood.
Yeah.
Listen, your family are now going into this, your children going into the industry. Sosie, we most recently saw in 13 Reasons Why. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that, about your children following in your footsteps?
I want my children to do...
And Kyra's footsteps, of course.
Yeah, I want my children to do what my children want to do. I mean, I think that... we didn't encourage them. We certainly didn't encourage them to become actors. I think that, especially being an actor, was something hard for us to say. Yeah, you got to do it, because, Kira and I have seen the slings and arrows of going up for things and being rejected. And being an actor is a lifetime of being told no, or being told you're not right, or being told, your performance is not good, or you're too ugly, or you're too short, or too tall, or too old, or too young. You know what I mean? And especially if you're a woman, I think there's a lot of judgment that happens there. So to want to push your kid into that kind of a thing is just something that we're not into. However, when Sosie came to it, she came to it on her own, and with very little encouragement for us. And frankly, I feel like that's the best way to go into this career is to go into it and say, look, I know you're not, to go, you're always going to have something to push against. So it's good to go into it pushing against something. My son, on the other hand, he's just always been a musician, and his first word was guitar. I used
Really?
I used to make him little tiny guitars when he was a little boy, long before he could play, and I would make them out of cardboard, and he would want to hold them, and every time we would see a guitar, a toy guitar, anything, he was just guitar, and so now he's a guitar player and plays in a lot of rock bands and metal, and he's also writing music now, so for his mom's movie, and he's doing great.
Too many great films to mention, Kevin Bacon, from Footloose to JFK, A Few Good Men, The Woodsman, Apollo 13, Sleepers. I could go on, but that would be the rest of the interview. But Footloose, I guess, for many of us, especially given I'm 43 now, so that I was at the perfect age when Footloose came out, and of course, loved it at the time. But that, I felt, was a time, looking back on it, that your career should have been on a massive upward trajectory, but that didn't happen. Why not?
Well, you know what? I don't know. I mean, I think that. Well, first off, let me say that at the time, of course, it was difficult for me, but I also feel like we all have our own process, and if you change one piece of the journey, it may not even end up going where you want it to go ultimately. And at this point in my life, I feel extremely grateful for the opportunities. There's a few things I'm grateful for. One is that I haven't died of a drug overdose or fallen apart, ended up in a mental institution, or that I'm just alive. I mean, I've seen a lot of people come and go in the course of my life, and there's a lot of roadkill. I also feel like to be able to make a living at being an actor is a tremendous success. And I'm also really thrilled that the kinds of parts that come my way are pretty varied. I don't just get one kind of thing. I don't just get cops, or I don't just get comedies. I don't just get horror. I get all kinds of different things to play. I think that when Footloose came out, I was so focused on being a serious actor, whatever that means. I really had this desire to be taken seriously as an actor, because the kinds of actors that I grew up admiring were, people like Robert De Niro and Dustin Hoffman and Meryl Streep and Jon Voight and on and on and on, and actors that did stage and did films. And when Footloose came out, I was a pop star. So I think that I had a difficult time accepting that, and I also pushed against it. I think there was an element, whether I was aware of it or not, of kind of self-sabotage when it came to the decisions that I made. And so, I made a lot of bad movies, and even if they weren't bad, they were movies that didn't end up performing. But the way that I sort of came out of the other side of it was when I went, well, you know what? You don't have to be the leading man all the time. Maybe what you are really is a character actor, and I think that's really what I consider myself to be. Because I want the characters to be different. I want them to be unique to that film. And I don't want to feel like it's some version of me up there, or even some version of the last thing that I did, If I was stuck in the world of funny guy, or I was stuck in the world of action hero, or whatever, or romantic lead, I don't think I would be really very happy. So I think that in a way, I kind of, I think I altered that trajectory myself.
Yes, and your agent as well, I know, sort of suggested to you at the time, is that right, that you should take on these more meaty character roles. You've talked before, though, that the sort of the low point of when you were still I guess, feeling like a bit of a pop star, but it wasn't coming through for you after Footloose, was when you made Tremors, which of course is now a cult hit, and everybody loves Tremors. But you at the time were like, "What am I doing?"
Not only is it a cult hit, I mean, it ended up being a fantastic movie, but I'm actually exploring the idea of doing it as a television series, because if you took all these characters that I've played, I don't know how many there are, it's the one character that I think to myself, I want to revisit him, because, when I left this town of perfection, I just started thinking about what would the guy be like in 25 years, Are the worms still there? Maybe they're gone. Maybe, he's had this moment. He was kind of a loser, and then he had this moment of heroics, when he battled these underground worms, and now they're gone, and how have we left him? And so we're working on that as a television series, and I hope it happens.
Gosh, so do I. I think the people that love Tremors, and they are legion, would absolutely jump at the chance to see that happening. It gives you so much more scope, doesn't it? Funny, I've just been talking to Colin Meaney in the last little while about that and about the golden age of television. Another great character actor. And, why that is that now TV, everybody and their granny wants to be in a TV programme, from Nicole Kidman to Matthew McConaughey, etc. But you made that jump into television quite early on, didn't you?
Well,
Why did you go?
It actually wasn't. It wasn't as early as you would think, because Kira was on The Closer for quite a few years before I did The Following, and I was looking at her, and I was looking at her experience with television, and it wasn't just that it was a great gig and that there was great employment, but she was really enjoying taking this character to new levels, and she was really enjoying the challenge of doing that. And when I became an actor, television and films were there was a pretty big divide between them. I mean, I liked television shows, but I didn't want to be on, The Love Boat. And
you're going back a long way now.
Yeah, and I Dream of Jeannie, and I mean, this was my idea of like what television was.
Well, people used to say, didn't they, if you did too much TV back in the day, that'd be the end of your movie career.
Absolutely, no. There were movie actors and there were TV actors, and I was not going to be a TV actor. And then I stopped at a certain point, and I looked around, and I realized that. There were shows that I was watching, like The Sopranos, like The Wire, like 6 Feet Under, and Dexter, and I was kind of so immersed in these television shows, and people were talking about them at dinner parties, and they were water cooler kind of stuff, and I went, why am I missing out on this? I need to have a piece of this. So even though it was reluctant, I picked up the phone, I called my agents, and I said, all right, I'm ready to throw my hat in the ring. And up to this point, they knew on pain of death that they were not allowed to mention a television series to me, because if they did, I would look at that as a vote of no confidence and would probably go get another agent. And so I called them, and within a week, I read 3 of the best screenplays I had read in years, television pilots. And what I realized is that writers, unfortunately, on films are often kind of second-class citizens in a way. They write the film, but once we start shooting the film, they're sometimes kind of pushed off to the side. Not all writers, but many are. And the actors come in and start just making stuff up on the set, and the director comes in and he starts saying, yeah, you don't have to say that. Say this, we'll do it, we'll shoot it this way. And then it gets edited. So a lot of what they've created can just be completely destroyed or written by somebody else, which never happens in the theater, right? I mean, you don't go into you're not doing Romeo and Juliet and rewriting the lines. It's that you have to. Theater has respect for writers, and I think writers got kind of frustrated with that and went to television. And that's why the actors have followed, because the writers have been there, and they now are running the show in terms of television. A director on a television show, except for a few kind of examples, is is a lot of times just there to service the writer. The writer has the final say in all kinds of stuff, and that includes actors. That includes big stars. You can't kind of swing your weight around in the same way on television, and that to me is the thing that's really elevated it and made people come to it.
So the dynamic is really, really shifting then. So if the best writing now is in television, where does that leave the film industry?
It's difficult, it's frankly a little kind of painful for me because I love movies. Movies are my bread and butter. I grew up wanting to go. I'm still a movie consumer. I look at what's playing, and I make trips to the, downtown, uptown, different neighborhoods to go and sit in a darkened theater with a few other people and watch it. But it's harder and harder to make things that aren't comic books and big kind of silly comedies or things with fast cars in them. I mean, things that blow up and
superheroes.
Yeah, superheroes.
Although you've done that,
I have. Of course, I have. I mean, I have. But the thing is that once I do it, like that was it. Like that was my one that I played.
In X-Men.
Yeah. So if he doesn't come back, it's kind of like Marvel's not going to say, well, you're that guy, and then you're also some other guy. So there's not that many opportunities really. And the studios make less films. They're still making a ton of money. I mean, they are, but they're spending a lot more money on a handful of films. And the kind of stuff not only that I would get, but also the kind of stuff that I'm interested in is few and far between in films right now. And as a result, for instance, I've made a lot of kind of experimental. I've produced and directed, things like you mentioned, The Woodsman. Dark, subject matter that really nobody else would touch. Independent films are very, very important to me. But the fact that I can go and do something like I Love Dick, which is truly outside the mainstream, not only in the script, but in the subject matter, in the way it's shot, in the way it's edited, in the music. It's like an art house film in a way that happens to have a venue, and that venue is Amazon. It's thrilling to me. I think it's so cool because it just gives us a place to continue to push the boundaries of art. And if nobody is doing that, then art dies. You don't. Picasso had to start breaking up the form, right? Rap music had to explode and grow and challenge what popular music was about. We have to be constantly kind of challenging the norm. And if television is now a place where that's possible, I think that's awesome.
Kevin, you and many other people lost a significant amount of money as part of one of the biggest financial frauds in US history, perpetrated by Bernie Madoff and his Ponzi scheme. There is a new film on HBO, Wizard of Lies, coming out this month or next month. I wondered, is it something that you're going to watch?
Oh, hell yeah.
Why?
I can't wait. Because I like De Niro. And yeah.
And masochism?
Yeah, it's not masochism. Look, I mean, that was a dark day. My wife and I looked at each other and went, well, the kids are okay, we can still work. We're healthy, and we'll pick up the pieces, learn some lessons, and get through this. I don't think about that at all in the course of my day, and I haven't for years.
On digital and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
bbc.co.uk/5live.